Hello friend, and welcome back to Science for Sleep. Tonight, we'll be drifting into a quieter kind of topic, the science of introverts, and the surprising benefits that come with moving gently through the world. Even though introverts are often misunderstood, research shows that their calm strengths, reflective tendencies, and rich inner worlds offer advantages that are easy to overlook in a noisy, fast-paced society. This video is an invitation to slow down, soften the edges of your day, and explore the peaceful qualities that make introverts unique. Introversion isn't about shyness or withdrawal. It's about how a person restores their energy, how deeply they process experiences, and how their attention naturally turns inward before it moves outward. For some, a quiet room or a familiar routine feels more nourishing than any crowded space. Their thoughts unfold in slow, layered currents, giving them clarity, creativity, and emotional depth that thrive best in moments of stillness. Tonight, we'll drift through these gentle patterns. Why introverts think the way they do, why solitude restores them, and how their quiet strengths shape their lives in ways that feel steady and sure. So before we settle deeper into these sleepy facts, if you enjoy these calming explorations of the mind and the science of being human, you're welcome to subscribe. And if you feel comfortable, share where you're listening from tonight. It helps others find this restful corner of the world where curiosity moves slowly and everything feels just a bit softer. Let the pace ease now. Let the noise of the day fall away. Whether you're listening to fall asleep or simply to unwind, this gentle journey into the world of introverts is here to keep you company at a rhythm that asks nothing of you. In this quiet, you might even recognize pieces of yourself, steady, thoughtful, and beautifully attuned to the calm of your own inner space. I'm glad you're here. Across psychology, introversion is understood not as a preference for isolation, but as a natural orientation toward quieter sources of energy. While extroversion is fueled by outward stimulation, introversion finds strength in the calmer spaces where thoughts can unfold without interruption. Researchers studying personality traits often describe introversion and extroversion as points along a broad spectrum rather than opposites. Most people fall somewhere in between, but those who lean toward introversion tend to process the world more deeply, taking in information with a slow, reflective rhythm. This inner orientation shapes how they react to noise, movement, conversations, and even the subtle shifts in their surroundings. One of the foundational scientific ideas behind introversion comes from differences in baseline neurological arousal. Introverts often have higher levels of internal activity, meaning that additional stimulation from the environment can feel overwhelming more quickly. This doesn't mean they are fragile or withdrawn. It simply means their systems are already running at a gentle hum, and they need less external input to feel alert. Because of this, introverts gravitate naturally toward environments where the sensory load is lower, allowing their thoughts and emotions to settle into a comfortable balance. Researchers have found that this internal sensitivity contributes to stronger reflection, deeper processing, and a natural inclination toward observing before acting. If you imagine this sensitivity as something soft rather than sharp, it might feel like standing beside a quiet lake at dawn. A small ripple, a gentle breeze, or a single footstep across the grass is enough to shift the scene. Introverts perceive these ripples of experience with greater clarity. They notice subtle changes in expressions, tone, or atmosphere, allowing them to read situations with a kind of quiet precision. This attentiveness supports their ability to understand feelings, both their own and those of others, with a depth that often goes unseen. By taking in the world slowly, they gather details that many overlook, giving them a steady sense of the emotional landscape around them. Another scientific perspective comes from personality research showing that introversion is linked to preferences in processing styles. Introverts often engage more deeply with internal thoughts, using reflection to understand new information before responding. This doesn't mean they think more. It means they think differently, forming connections within their inner world before turning outward. Their attention often flows inward first, grounding them before they move through external interactions. This inner-first approach explains why introverts may pause before speaking, seeking clarity within themselves before offering words. Far from hesitation, this pause is part of their gentle intelligence, a moment of refinement that brings calm and intention to what they express. Through all of these scientific viewpoints, neurological sensitivity, reflective processing, and attunement to subtle experiences, introversion emerges not as a limitation, but as a natural way of moving through the world. It creates a quieter kind of strength, one built on depth, awareness, and steady perception. As we continue through these sleepy facts, the layers of introversion begin to reveal themselves. Soft patterns of thought, gentle preferences for calm, and an inner landscape rich enough to rest inside. In the slow rhythm of this trait, introverts find their balance, gathering energy in the spaces where silence becomes supportive and thought becomes a source of quiet comfort. Across years of research, scientists have noticed subtle but consistent patterns in how introverted brains respond to the world. These differences are not dramatic or extreme. They unfold quietly, like soft variations in lighting that change the feel of a room. Introverts tend to engage neural pathways associated with long-term focus, internal processing, and reflective attention more readily than pathways tied to fast, high-stimulation responses. Their brains often favor what's known as the calm focus network, one rooted in acetylcholine activity, which supports thoughtful concentration, steady attention, and the gentle pleasure of doing things at a slower pace. This pathway offers its own kind of reward: clarity, depth, and a sense of inner grounding that feels naturally soothing to those who experience it. One of the most widely discussed scientific differences involves how introverts respond to dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with excitement, reward, and external stimulation. While introverts do produce and use dopamine just like everyone else, their brains tend to be more sensitive to it. As a result, highly stimulating environments that bring energy to extroverts may feel overwhelming to introverts, as if the inputs pile up faster than they can comfortably process. This doesn't mean introverts dislike joy or novelty. It simply means their reward system operates with a quieter preference, finding pleasure in subtler experiences like calm conversations, familiar routines, or steady, uninterrupted focus. This balance between dopamine sensitivity and acetylcholine-driven calm helps shape the distinctive inner landscape many introverts experience. If you imagine this difference as a gentle contrast rather than a divide, it might feel like the distinction between a brightly lit room and one illuminated by a soft lamp. Both provide light, Both allow you to see, but each sets a completely different mood. Introverted brains function beautifully in the softer lighting, where thoughts expand, where ideas unfold naturally, and where attention feels anchored rather than pulled. In these quieter conditions, introverts often access deeper layers of creativity and insight, not through rapid bursts of stimulation, but through slow, persistent engagement with whatever captures their curiosity. It's a rhythm that feels less like chasing after something and more like letting understanding rise in its own time. Another scientific observation involves the default mode network, an interconnected set of brain regions active during introspection, daydreaming, and internal reflection. Introverts tend to show heightened activity in this network, even when the outside world is quiet. This helps explain why many introverts carry a vivid inner world, filled with thoughts, associations, and reflections that continue flowing beneath the surface. These internal currents can make solitude feel rich rather than empty, providing a place where ideas roam freely and where emotional insights can form without disruption. The default mode network becomes a kind of inner landscape, one that introverts access naturally and often without conscious effort, giving them a depth of awareness that feels both steady and expansive. Through these subtle neurological patterns, dopamine sensitivity, acetylcholine-driven calm, reflective processing, and active introspective networks, the introverted brain reveals itself as a place shaped for depth rather than speed, for quiet clarity rather than constant stimulation. These traits do not limit the introvert but offer a different pathway to understanding the world, one that values nuance, patience, and the slow unfurling of thought. As we drift deeper into these sleepy facts, the beauty of this inner architecture becomes more apparent. A brain designed to move gently, think deeply, and find meaning in the softness between moments. Within this design, introverts discover their equilibrium, a place where calm becomes strength and reflection becomes a quiet form of brilliance. Across many studies, researchers have observed that introverts often experience the world with a heightened sensitivity to sensory input. This sensitivity isn't dramatic in the way a loud sound or bright light might shock the senses. It is subtler, more like an increased awareness of the small details that others might naturally tune out. Introverts tend to process sensory information more deeply, allowing each piece of input to travel a little further into their internal pathways before it settles. This deeper processing contributes to their reflective nature, but it also means that environments filled with noise, movement, or unpredictable changes can feel draining more quickly. Their systems work beautifully in calm settings, where each sound or sensation can be absorbed at a gentle pace, without competing layers of stimulation. One of the scientific explanations for this sensitivity involves the reticular activating system, a network in the brainstem that regulates arousal and alertness. Introverts often have higher baseline activity in this system, making them more reactive to incoming sensory information. This doesn't cause discomfort by default. Instead, it ensures that introverts notice more of the environment around them, from subtle shifts in tone to quiet movement at the edge of their vision. Because their brains naturally register these details, busy environments can accumulate sensations faster than they can comfortably process. When overstimulation begins, the experience is not chaotic. It simply feels like there is too much input arriving at once, filling the internal space where reflection usually flows freely. Imagining this sensitivity can feel like watching ripples spreading across water. A single drop creates a soft pattern of motion, easy to follow and beautiful in its simplicity. But when many drops fall at once, the water becomes busier, the patterns blending until they lose their clarity. Introverts experience external stimulation somewhat like this. Quiet environments allow their inner processing to glide smoothly, creating room for thought and calm interpretation. Meanwhile, crowded settings layer input upon input, making the internal landscape feel full more quickly. This does not indicate weakness. It reflects the natural pace at which introverts process the world, a pace shaped for depth, not for constant sensory activity. Research into sensory processing shows that introverts often benefit from lower intensity environments when they aim to concentrate or recharge. Soft lighting, steady sounds, and predictable rhythms create conditions where their cognitive systems can settle. Because introverts excel at noticing details, environments that reduce unnecessary noise allow their strengths to shine, whether through attentive listening, careful analysis, or creative insight. This is why many introverts find peace in spaces like calm rooms, quiet cafes, gentle corners of nature, or simply being alone with their own thoughts. Their systems thrive in places where stimulation matches their natural rhythm, allowing their internal processes to unfold without interruption. Through these sensory traits, introversion reveals another layer of its quiet beauty. It shows how deeply introverts experience the world, how their attention moves inward and outward with care, and how their sense of balance depends on environments that honor their pace. This sensitivity is not a barrier, but a guide, helping introverts understand what nourishes them and where they feel most at ease. In recognizing these patterns, they gain the ability to create spaces, both internal and external, where their strengths can grow softly and steadily. And as we drift into the next sleepy facts, this understanding paints a clearer picture of the calm, intricate ways introverts navigate their surroundings with such gentle precision. In many ways, introverts navigate their days by managing a quiet balance between outward activity and inward restoration. The world often moves quickly, filled with conversations, decisions, and shifting expectations. Yet introverts move through these moments with a sensitivity to how each interaction draws on their internal energy. Social settings, even enjoyable ones, require them to process multiple layers of information at once: tone, meaning, emotion, atmosphere, all flowing through their reflective pathways. Over time, this steady processing creates a kind of social fatigue, not because introverts dislike others, but because their inner systems work more deeply during every exchange. When that internal reservoir begins to empty, the need for solitude becomes a gentle but unmistakable pull. One of the scientific insights behind this pattern comes from differences in cortical arousal. Introverts often have higher resting levels of internal stimulation, meaning that social interactions add to an already active inner environment. This creates a demand on attention and cognitive resources that may feel natural in short doses, but grows tiring over extended periods. Social fatigue is not a sign of weakness or disinterest. It is simply the natural result of sustained processing. research shows that introverts recover most effectively in low stimulation settings, where their systems can return to baseline. In these quiet spaces, the internal pathways that were juggling multiple streams of information have room to settle, allowing energy to rebuild at a steady, comfortable pace. Imagining this rhythm can feel like watching a lantern slowly dim as its flame grows tired. The light is still warm, still glowing, but it needs a moment of stillness to gather itself again. For introverts, solitude acts as this moment. When they step away from the noise of the day, the internal dimness reverses and the light grows stronger. Thoughts stretch out with more space, breathing slows, and the soft sense of internal clarity returns. This cycle unfolds naturally, without force or urgency. Even a few minutes in a peaceful room, a quiet walk, or time spent with familiar routines can replenish the inner energy that social interaction gently drains. Another scientific perspective involves the concept of cognitive load. Introverts tend to engage more deeply with conversations, analyzing meaning, emotion, and nuance with careful reflection. This depth enriches their understanding, but increases the mental resources required for each interaction. When cognitive load becomes high, the introvert system signals the need for a pause. Alone time reduces that load, creating a space where thoughts can reorganize and flow freely again. This process is not an escape from others, but a return to equilibrium, a way for introverts to come back to themselves so they can re-engage with the world without strain. Through these patterns of arousal, cognitive processing, and quiet restoration, introverts reveal a unique energy cycle that moves gently between engagement and solitude. Their strength is not found in constant activity, but in the balance between immersion and withdrawal. When they honor this rhythm, their clarity deepens, their creativity opens, and their interactions become more meaningful. The need for rest becomes not a limitation, but an affirmation of how beautifully their systems work. As we drift further into these sleepy facts, this understanding helps illuminate the quiet ways introverts maintain their inner balance. One thoughtful breath, one calm moment, one restored spark of energy at a time. For many introverts, much of life unfolds in the quiet spaces of their inner worlds. Those soft, reflective landscapes where thoughts drift slowly, ideas take shape, and meaning deepens with time. While the outside world offers noise, movement, and rapid shifts, the inner world offers depth, continuity, and calm. It is a place where introverts process experiences carefully, letting impressions settle before forming responses. This inward orientation is not a withdrawal, but a natural home, a space large enough to hold unspoken ideas, lingering questions, and the kind of slow reflections that give clarity to complex situations. When the world feels too fast, the inner world becomes a sanctuary where thought can breathe. Scientific studies suggest that introverts tend to engage more heavily in internal processing networks, using regions of the brain associated with reflection and self-referential thinking. These networks activate even during moments of rest, allowing the introvert's thoughts to continue weaving gently beneath the surface. This ongoing background activity supports their ability to analyze experiences in detail, often noticing patterns or connections long after the moment has passed. Because of this, introverts may appear quieter during fast-paced conversations, not due to disinterest, but because their processing occurs along deeper pathways. Their thoughts gather depth as they move inward first, forming ideas gradually before they are expressed outwardly. If you imagine this inner world as a place, it might resemble a softly illuminated room with wide windows overlooking a calm landscape. Here, thoughts settle like slow-moving clouds across an open sky, each one drifting at its own pace. Nothing demands urgency. Each idea waits patiently as the next unfolds. This gentle movement of thought allows introverts to explore possibilities without pressure, forming conclusions that feel grounded rather than rushed. In this space, creativity has time to stretch, and emotional understanding deepens quietly. For many introverts, this inner landscape is not a retreat from life, but the foundation of how they understand it, steadying them before they step outward into the world. Researchers also note that introverts often excel at internal rehearsal, a process where the mind runs through future conversations, decisions, or ideas before they occur. This rehearsal helps them feel prepared and centered, reducing the cognitive strain of unpredictability. It also contributes to their reputation for thoughtfulness, as they often consider outcomes carefully before acting. While this can sometimes lead to slower outward responses, the internal clarity it produces becomes one of their quiet strengths. Their approach reflects an intention to understand rather than react, to refine rather than rush. Through this internal rehearsal, introverts maintain a sense of stability in a world filled with shifting expectations. As these inner processes continue throughout life, they create a rich well of insight that introverts draw from daily. Their inner world becomes a place where creativity, reflection, emotional awareness, and careful reasoning coexist in gentle harmony. Far from being a sign of detachment, this inward focus supports a deeper engagement with the world, allowing introverts to understand experiences with nuance and care. In recognizing the beauty of these internal rhythms, introverts often discover a source of quiet strength that guides them through both calm and complexity. As we move further into these sleepy facts, this inner landscape remains a soft reminder of how deeply introverts feel and how thoughtfully they navigate the world around them. Solitude holds a special kind of ease for many introverts, offering a space where the steady hum of the world softens into something gentler and easier to navigate. In moments alone, thoughts have room to stretch and emotions settle into clearer patterns. The absence of external noise allows the internal landscape to rise into focus, revealing ideas, reflections, and memories that may have been overshadowed during busy hours. It isn't that introverts prefer isolation at all times, but rather that solitude provides a natural equilibrium, an environment where energy returns quietly and clarity begins to grow again. In this calm, the introvert reconnects with the rhythms that feel most natural, the ones shaped by inner stillness rather than outward demand. Scientific research supports this need for restorative solitude. Studies show that introverts experience what psychologists call reactive fatigue, a gradual depletion of mental resources when faced with continuous stimulation. This does not indicate fragility. It reflects a deeper processing style that uses energy more quickly in fast-moving or socially dense environments. Solitude offers the conditions necessary for cognitive restoration, allowing the system to reset by lowering the amount of incoming information. During these quiet periods, brainwave activity often shifts into patterns associated with relaxation, creativity, and reflective thought. The result is not emptiness, but renewal, a return to a baseline where the inner world feels open and awake once again. If solitude were a place one could step into physically, it might feel like crossing into a gentle clearing beside a forest, where the air grows still and the sounds fall into softer tones. Time stretches slightly, thoughts settle into smoother flows, and the sense of internal spaciousness widens. Many introverts describe solitude not as loneliness, but as a form of nourishment, a moment where they can finally exhale without having to manage multiple layers of stimuli. The quiet becomes a partner rather than an absence, offering room for reflection, creativity, and emotional digestion. In these open moments, the introvert's mind regains the softness and balance it needs to move comfortably through the rest of life. Researchers also highlight that solitude enhances a cognitive process known as incubation, a period when the brain continues working on ideas beneath conscious awareness. Introverts often experience this naturally. While the outside world becomes quiet, internal networks remain gently active, connecting thoughts and forming insights that might not appear during busy hours. This incubation effect contributes to the introvert's ability to produce deep, thoughtful solutions and creative ideas. Solitude creates the space needed for these subtle connections to arise, transforming quiet time into a powerful tool for understanding and growth. It becomes a moment where the inner world organizes itself with calm intention, free from the pressures of constant engagement. Through this gentle relationship with solitude, introverts reveal one of their most beautiful strengths, the ability to find restoration, meaning, and clarity in stillness. Their connection to quiet is not a sign of avoidance, but a pathway to balance. It allows them to return to the world with renewed attention, deeper insight, and a sense of grounded presence. As we continue drifting through these sleepy facts, this appreciation for solitude becomes a guiding thread, showing how the calmest spaces often hold the greatest depth, and how introverts embrace these spaces as a natural extension of who they are. Introverts often form their closest bonds slowly, allowing trust and familiarity to develop at a pace that feels natural and steady. Instead of gathering large groups around them, they tend to shape their social world through a few meaningful connections, relationships built on depth, sincerity, and comfort rather than speed or quantity. This selective nature isn't a rejection of others. It reflects a preference for interactions that carry warmth and continuity. In these small circles, introverts feel safe enough to share their ideas, invite conversation, and open their inner world without the pressure of constant performance. Their relationships become calm spaces where authenticity can emerge gently, supported by mutual understanding rather than noise. Scientific studies on social energy show that introverts experience stronger activation in regions of the brain associated with emotional reflection during interpersonal interactions. This means that even positive conversations engage their internal systems deeply, prompting them to think, analyze, and empathize on a richer level. Because of this, introverts often prefer fewer connections where they can invest their emotional resources intentionally. Their bonds may be small in number, but they tend to be long-lasting and meaningful, shaped by loyalty and a quiet sense of presence. Researchers have also found that introverts are more sensitive to social subtleties, picking up on tone and emotion with careful attention. skills that strengthen their close relationships by fostering empathy and understanding. If you imagine the way introverts connect, it might feel like watching a lantern glow softly in a quiet space. The light is not loud or sweeping, but it warms everything within its circle with a calm, steady glow. Introverted relationships often feel like that. Spaces where conversation flows gently, where silence feels welcoming rather than awkward, and where both people can rest into the moment without the need to fill it. Because introverts listen with intention, their presence can feel grounding to those they care about. They give others the rare experience of being heard slowly and fully, without distraction or hurry. In this way, their connections become not only meaningful, but deeply soothing for both sides. Researchers studying attachment patterns suggest that introverts often build strong, stable bonds because of their thoughtful approach to trust. They tend to observe before opening up, learning the emotional landscape of another person with patience. This careful approach reduces misunderstandings and creates a foundation built on clarity and mutual respect. Their tendency to avoid superficial interactions also means that when they invest in someone, they do so with sincerity. Introverts value emotional honesty, gentle rhythms, and conversations that allow both people to relax into authenticity. Over time, these qualities deepen the connection, turning even simple interactions into moments of quiet reassurance. Through these small but powerful circles of connection, introverts reveal a kind of relational strength that often goes unnoticed. They don't compete for attention or seek constant interaction. Instead, they create spaces of warmth and steadiness where the people they love can feel understood. Their friendships and relationships may be fewer in number, but they are rich in depth and trust. As we drift further into these sleepy facts, these quiet bonds help illuminate the introverted experience, not as one defined by withdrawal, but by thoughtful, intentional connection that glows softly in the background of their lives. When introverts communicate, their words often emerge from a place of reflection rather than impulse. Thoughts travel inward first, taking shape in the quiet layers of their inner world before they rise into speech. This internal pacing gives their communication a thoughtful, measured quality, one shaped by intention, clarity, and depth. While the world around them may move quickly, introverts tend to express themselves more gently, allowing pauses to guide their flow. These pauses are not signs of uncertainty, but reflections of a different processing rhythm, one that values meaning over speed and coherence over immediacy. In conversations that honor this slower pace, introverts often shine, offering insight that feels grounded rather than rushed. Scientific studies show that introverts exhibit increased activation in regions of the brain associated with internal speech and reflective processing. This means that before they speak, they often rehearse their thoughts internally, shaping the structure of what they want to say, anticipating reactions, or choosing precise language. This internal rehearsal is a natural part of their cognitive rhythm, helping them express ideas with clarity when they do decide to share. However, because much of this work happens inwardly, introverts may appear quieter in dynamic conversations, especially those where topics shift rapidly. Their silence is rarely empty. It is a moment of organization, where thoughts assemble themselves with gentle care. To imagine this communication style, you might picture a stream that moves slowly and steadily, rather than rushing over rocks. The words take their time, flowing with calm intention. When introverts speak, their language often carries this quality, softly paced, carefully chosen, and infused with a subtle depth. They listen fully before responding, reading not only the content of a conversation, but its emotional undertones. This ability to tune into tone, expression, and atmosphere allows them to respond with empathy and precision, even when they choose to speak less often. Many introverts are strong listeners because they naturally absorb the nuances of what others say, creating a foundation for meaningful exchanges. Researchers examining communication styles note that introverts tend to prefer conversations with structure, clarity, and emotional authenticity. Small talk may feel energetically expensive because it requires rapid shifting between topics without offering space for reflective processing. In contrast, deeper conversations allow introverts to engage their strengths. Longer pauses, conceptual topics, and emotionally grounded discussions create an environment where their inner world aligns with the external flow. These conditions support the introvert's ability to speak thoughtfully and confidently. As the pace mirrors their internal rhythm, it becomes easier to express ideas fully when the conversation gives them room to breathe. Across friendships, relationships, and professional settings, introverts build communication patterns that emphasize presence over volume. They do not rush to speak first. Instead, they wait until their thoughts feel shaped enough to share. Their words often land with quiet precision, carrying the weight of having been considered with care. This gentle communication style creates a sense of calm for those around them, offering clarity in moments that might otherwise feel rushed or scattered. As we drift deeper into these sleepy facts, this understanding of introverted communication becomes another piece of their quiet strength, showing how, through reflection and thoughtful expression, introverts contribute depth and steadiness to the conversations that fill their lives. Introverts often experience their emotions with a kind of richness that unfolds quietly beneath the surface. While they may not express their feelings outwardly with intensity, their internal experience can be layered and deeply nuanced. Emotions move through the introverted inner world in soft waves, inviting reflection rather than immediate reaction. This depth is not dramatic or overwhelming. Instead, it carries a gentle clarity that grows stronger with time. Introverts tend to examine their feelings carefully, tracing the threads that connect past experiences to present reactions. In doing so, they develop a strong awareness of their internal landscape, understanding the contours of their own emotional world with precision and care. Scientific research suggests that introverts engage brain regions associated with introspection and self-referential processing more strongly than extroverts. This heightened activity creates space for deeper emotional understanding, allowing feelings to be examined rather than simply felt. Because of this, introverts often develop strong emotional intelligence in quiet ways, recognizing subtle shifts in their own mood, identifying sources of discomfort or joy, and responding with thoughtful intention rather than impulsivity. Their emotions may appear reserved on the outside, but internally, they move through a well-developed network of meaning and reflection. This internal clarity becomes a source of stability, especially during times of uncertainty. If you imagine the emotional life of an introvert visually, it might resemble a deep lake with a smooth, reflective surface. From the outside, the water appears still, but beneath the quiet, currents move with calm complexity. Each current represents a thought, a feeling, a memory, or a quiet intuition weaving through the depths. This stillness may be mistaken for detachment, but in reality, the introvert is simply processing their emotions inwardly, allowing each feeling to unfold before bringing it to the surface. The result is a grounded form of emotional awareness that doesn't demand attention, but reveals itself slowly, with honesty and depth. Researchers studying affective processing have found that introverts often take longer to return to emotional baseline after significant experiences. This extended processing time allows emotions to settle gradually, giving introverts space to understand what they are feeling and why. Because they take their time, their emotional resolutions are often more stable and long-lasting. They may not rush toward closure, but once they arrive at understanding, their conclusions tend to be clear and confident. This slow integration mirrors their larger way of moving through the world, steady, deliberate, and rooted in internal clarity. Emotional depth becomes not a burden, but a quiet gift, one that helps introverts navigate complex situations with remarkable insight. Through this deep emotional processing, introverts build a foundation of empathy that resonates across their relationships. Because they understand their own feelings so thoroughly, they often extend that same careful attention to others, listening with patience and noticing shifts in tone or expression that others may overlook. Their ability to reflect before speaking creates space for emotional nuance to be acknowledged rather than ignored. As we drift further through these sleepy facts, this emotional depth reveals itself as another of the introvert's quiet strengths, a calm, steady light that illuminates their inner world and the connections they build with the people around them. Confidence often appears loud in the modern world, expressed through boldness, extroverted energy, and outward assertion. But introverts carry a different kind of confidence, one that grows quietly beneath the surface. Their assurance comes not from dominating a room or seeking attention, but from depth. The depth of reflection, the depth of preparation, the depth of understanding. This quiet confidence develops slowly, shaped by thoughtful decision-making, internal clarity, and steady self-awareness. To outside observers, it may seem subtle, but to those who recognize it, the introvert's confidence feels grounded, calm, and remarkably resilient. Scientific perspectives on personality suggest that introverts often base their sense of confidence on competence rather than outward approval. Because they process information deeply and rehearse internally before acting, their choices tend to feel well considered. This internal preparation supports a stable form of self-trust, one that does not swing wildly with external opinion. Researchers have found that introverts often rely on intrinsic motivation, meaning they draw assurance from personal values and internal benchmarks rather than from social validation. This creates a confidence that may appear understated, but holds firm even in challenging circumstances, especially when tasks require patience, precision, or quiet focus. To imagine this form of confidence, you might picture a flame that burns low but steady, unaffected by sudden gusts of wind. It doesn't leap or crackle loudly, but it lasts. Introverts embody this steady flame in the way they approach challenges. They take time to think, gather information, and align their actions with their inner compass. Once they move forward, their decisions feel anchored in clarity, Even if they speak softly or pause before answering, the depth behind their words often reveals a certainty that does not need to announce itself. This is the essence of quiet confidence, assurance rooted in understanding rather than performance. Researchers studying social behavior note that introverts often excel in environments where thoughtful leadership is valued. Their preference for observation allows them to notice details others might miss, including dynamics within a group or subtle shifts in emotion. Because they do not rush to impose their views, they create space for others to feel heard. Over time, this builds trust, and people begin to rely on the introvert's steady judgment. Leadership grounded in quiet confidence often results in teams that feel supported rather than pressured, guided by consistency rather than intensity. This style may not attract immediate attention, but it fosters long-lasting respect. This gentle form of confidence also appears in personal contexts. Introverts build self-assurance through small, meaningful achievements, private commitments kept, and skills honed quietly over time. Their confidence unfolds inwardly first, then radiates outward through calm steadiness. They do not need to push themselves into the spotlight to validate their worth. Instead, they rely on the inner conviction that comes from knowing who they are and how they move through the world. As we drift deeper into these sleepy facts, this understanding reveals one of the most comforting truths about introverts. Their strength is often quiet, their certainty understated, but their confidence, once formed, can be among the most enduring of all. Creativity often flourishes in quiet spaces, and for many introverts, their inner world becomes a vast, open landscape where imagination moves freely. When the outside world grows still, their thoughts begin to stretch, connecting ideas that may have lingered beneath the surface throughout the day. Creativity for introverts does not always appear in sudden bursts. It often emerges slowly, shaped by reflection, curiosity, and the soft blending of memories with new possibilities. Their imagination operates with depth rather than speed, creating ideas that feel layered, thoughtful, and rich in meaning. This quiet form of creativity is nourished by solitude, where distractions fall away and the mind can drift without interruption. Scientific research highlights that introverts often engage in what psychologists call internal simulation, a process where the brain constructs scenarios, images, or concepts entirely within the mind before expressing them outwardly. This simulation allows introverts to explore various outcomes, rehearse creative ideas, and refine their thoughts before sharing them. Because their cognitive resources lean toward internal processing, introverts can visualize complex ideas with clarity, making creativity feel like a natural extension of their thought patterns. This doesn't mean they are always artistic in a traditional sense. Rather, their creativity may manifest in problem-solving, storytelling, design, deep analysis, or simply the way they interpret the world with nuance. To picture the introverted creative process, imagine a gentle river flowing through a quiet valley. The water moves slowly, but it carves depth into the landscape over time. Ideas form in the same way, gathering detail, refining themselves, and settling into patterns that feel meaningful. Introverts often take their time with creative tasks, not out of hesitation, but out of respect for the process. They prefer to let ideas mature, trusting that clarity will come when space is made for it. In these moments, imagination does not rush, it unfolds, Each layer adds depth, each connection adds complexity, and the result is often something beautifully deliberate. Researchers studying creativity have found that introverts are more likely to enter flow states during solitary work, periods where time fades and the mind becomes fully absorbed in a task. Flow enhances creative output by allowing uninterrupted focus, something introverts naturally gravitate toward. Without external noise or pressure, their thoughts align seamlessly with their work, producing insights that may not surface during more chaotic conditions. This ability to immerse deeply creates an environment where creativity can thrive, not as a fleeting spark, but as a steady, glowing presence that accompanies them throughout life. Their capacity for sustained, introspective focus is one of the foundations of their creative strength. The imaginative world of an introvert is often a refuge, an internal sanctuary filled with ideas, dreams, concepts, and gentle reflections. It allows them to interpret experiences through a lens of depth, turning even simple observations into something meaningful. Creativity becomes not only a skill, but a comfort, a way of processing emotion, understanding others, and finding beauty in quiet places. As we continue through these sleepy facts, this rich inner landscape becomes another reminder of the quiet brilliance introverts carry within them. Creativity that grows slowly, patiently, and with a softness that reveals depth rather than noise. Introverts often approach problem solving with a calm, deliberate rhythm, allowing their thoughts to move inward before they reach outward conclusions. Instead of reacting quickly to challenges, they tend to pause, observe, and let the details settle into place. This reflective pacing doesn't signal uncertainty. Rather, it reveals a mind that prefers clarity over haste. For introverts, solutions come from careful examination, from letting ideas simmer until they take shape in a way that feels steady and complete. Their approach may be quiet, but it is rooted in depth, allowing them to see connections and possibilities that might be overlooked by those who move more quickly through a problem. Scientific research on cognition suggests that introverts rely more heavily on internal processing networks when solving complex tasks. These networks support focused attention, long-form analysis, and sustained mental simulation. Because introverts naturally engage these pathways, they often excel at identifying patterns, anticipating long-term outcomes, and breaking down problems into manageable parts. Their thought process tends to be layered, moving slowly through different angles before settling on an answer. This cognitive style makes introverts particularly skilled at tasks that require patience, conceptual understanding, and an ability to trace subtle connections. Where quick solutions may falter, the introverted mind often finds depth. To visualize this style of problem solving, imagine a gentle fog rolling across a quiet landscape. At first, only the broad shapes are visible, but as the fog thins, finer details begin to appear. The introverted mind works similarly, starting with a wide view, then gradually revealing nuance as the reflection deepens. Each new detail shifts the perspective slightly, allowing the solution to emerge not through force, but through clarity. Introverts rarely rush this process, trusting that insight will come when the mind has had time to explore the situation fully. This patience becomes a strength, making their solutions thoughtful, balanced, and often more sustainable in the long run. Researchers studying decision-making have noted that introverts perform especially well in environments free from external pressure. When given time to think, their accuracy and creativity increase significantly. Under rushed or socially demanding conditions, however, they may feel overloaded by the competing stimuli. This is not due to a lack of capability, but to the energy cost of managing both internal analysis and external input simultaneously. Quiet, predictable settings allow introverts to engage their strengths without distraction, enabling them to craft solutions with a level of precision that emerges naturally from their reflective style. This alignment between environment and cognition enhances their effectiveness in roles requiring thoughtful judgment. Because introverts process information so deeply, their solutions often reflect a level of insight shaped by observation, empathy, and careful reasoning. They consider how decisions might affect others, what underlying variables are at play, and which outcomes align with long-term stability. Their answers are rarely impulsive. Instead, they develop through a blend of logic and intuition that feels grounded and reassuring. As we drift further into these sleepy facts, this unique approach to problem-solving reveals another of the introvert's quiet gifts: the ability to bring calm, clarity, and thoughtful precision to challenges that might overwhelm the hurried mind. Their solutions do not shout for attention, yet they often stand the test of time. The environments introverts move through each day shape their energy more strongly than many people realize. Soft lighting, quiet rooms, predictable rhythms, and gentle surroundings can feel like nourishment, restoring a sense of equilibrium that busy spaces quickly unsettle. It isn't that introverts avoid stimulation altogether. It's that their systems process each sensation with greater depth, making the external world more influential on their internal balance. A bright or crowded setting can feel overwhelming, not because it is unpleasant, but because it fills the inner space where reflection usually flows. When the environment shifts toward calm, the introvert's energy settles, and their mind regains the clarity and comfort it needs to function at its natural rhythm. Scientific research on sensory thresholds suggests that introverts tend to have lower thresholds for external stimulation. This means their brains respond more strongly to noise, brightness, movement, and unpredictable changes. Even subtle shifts in lighting or background sound can influence their comfort level. While some people thrive in energetic environments, introverts often excel in spaces that reduce unnecessary sensory input. Quiet rooms free up cognitive resources, allowing them to think clearly and concentrate deeply. Studies also show that introverts are more affected by ambient noise when performing complex tasks, as their internal processing networks compete with incoming sensory information. The right environment does not merely support them, it unlocks their natural strengths. To imagine the introvert's relationship with space, picture a soft, gently lit room where everything is arranged with care. Nothing demands attention. The air feels calm, and the light diffuses evenly across the surfaces, creating a sense of tranquility. In such an environment, introverts often feel their minds open, their breathing slow, and their thoughts move without interruption. This is not about perfection or isolation, but about being in a space that respects their sensory rhythm. Even nature offers this kind of support. Quiet trails, calm water, or shaded forests can bring a sense of restfulness that allows the inner world to expand comfortably. These environments create a sanctuary where attention deepens naturally. Researchers studying environmental psychology have found that introverts often experience measurable benefits from quiet or visually soft spaces. Heart rates stabilize, cortisol levels decrease, and cognitive performance improves in calm settings. These physiological responses highlight how deeply the external world interacts with the introverted nervous system. Spaces with natural light, gentle colors, and minimal clutter can reduce overstimulation and restore internal balance. Because their senses absorb more detail, introverts often feel recharged in environments that provide predictability and softness. These spaces give them the room to observe, reflect, and engage without strain, supporting both emotional well-being and cognitive clarity. Through this sensitivity to environments, introverts reveal a relationship with space that is both practical and deeply intuitive. They understand, often without needing to articulate it, which surroundings help them thrive and which ones slowly drain their energy. By gravitating toward calm spaces, they are not withdrawing from life. They are choosing the settings that allow them to show up fully. As we continue drifting through these sleepy facts, this connection between environment and inner experience becomes another quiet strength of introverts. The ability to recognize what nurtures them, to seek out spaces that offer calm, and to let those surroundings shape a sense of peace within their inner world. Focus unfolds differently in the inner world of an introvert. Instead of scattering attention across many moving pieces, introverts tend to narrow their spotlight of awareness, immersing themselves deeply in whatever holds their interest. This ability to concentrate with calm persistence often feels like slipping into a gentle current that carries their thoughts forward without interruption. When the environment quiets and distractions fade, their mind settles into a steady rhythm, allowing them to work, learn, or create with a kind of soft determination that does not need intensity to feel powerful. Their attention stretches slowly but firmly, embracing depth rather than speed, and holding steady even when the task is complex or detailed. Scientific studies show that introverts often rely on attentional networks associated with sustained focus rather than rapid task switching. These networks support their natural preference for environments with fewer distractions, where their cognitive resources can gather instead of scatter. Because introverts process information more deeply, their minds tend to commit more fully to the task in front of them, entering what psychologists describe as deep work states. These states are characterized by heightened concentration, reduced awareness of outside stimuli, and a sense of time moving differently. For introverts, this experience is not rare. It is one of the ways their cognition naturally organizes itself when given room to breathe. To picture this focused state, imagine a quiet hallway illuminated by a soft lantern. Everything outside the lantern's glow fades into calm shadow, leaving only the path ahead gently lit. Many introverts experience their attention like that lantern, narrow, warm, and steady. The outer world fades, not out of neglect, but because the inner world becomes brighter. Thoughts align with a clarity that feels peaceful, and distractions fall away without resistance. This depth of attention allows introverts to notice subtleties, integrate complex ideas, and stay immersed in a single pursuit far longer than those who rely on external stimulation to maintain momentum. Their focus does not spike. It settles, strengthening as stillness grows. Researchers have also found that introverts are more likely to enter flow states during tasks that require sustained concentration. Flow occurs when skill and challenge meet in perfect balance, creating a feeling of effortless immersion. In these moments, the mind becomes fully absorbed, and even internal dialogue quiets. For introverts, this state can be triggered by solitary activities such as reading, writing, research, design, coding, or analytical problem solving. Because their cognitive style favors internal processing, flow forms naturally in environments that reduce noise and allow the inner landscape to take the lead. This capacity for deep immersion gives introverts a quiet advantage in tasks that demand persistence and detail. Through these focusing patterns, introverts reveal another part of their gentle strength. They may not move quickly through multiple tasks at once, but when they settle into concentration, their attention becomes precise, patient, and remarkably steady. Their ability to hold a thought, follow an idea, or work on a project without drifting creates a kind of intellectual stillness, a space where insight forms with clarity and meaning. As we drift further into these sleepy facts, this understanding of introverted focus becomes another soft reminder of the beauty in their quiet ways. Attention that deepens rather than scatters, concentration that strengthens rather than rushes, and a mind that finds its rhythm in the calmest corners of the world. Rest is more than a pause for introverts. It is a form of nourishment that allows their inner world to regain clarity. Throughout the day, their minds absorb layers of detail, tones, gestures, emotions, patterns, subtle shifts in atmosphere, each one processed more deeply than they may consciously realize. Over time, this inward analysis gently accumulates, creating a need for quiet moments where the mind can settle. Downtime gives introverts the space to let these impressions sift and fall into place, restoring balance after periods of stimulation. It is not about avoiding life, but about maintaining the internal rhythm that supports their clarity, creativity, and emotional steadiness. Scientific studies on cognitive fatigue suggest that introverts expend more mental energy during social and high-stimulation activities because they process information through deeper internal pathways. This means that even positive experiences can lead to a sense of quiet depletion. Rest allows the nervous system to return to baseline by reducing the cognitive load and lowering sensory input. Psychologists describe this as a recovery cycle, a period during which the brain reorganizes incoming information and clears space for new thoughts. For introverts, these recovery cycles are essential, not optional. They enable the mind to return to its natural calm, making it easier to think clearly, respond intentionally, and engage with the world from a grounded place. To imagine the role of rest in an introvert's life, picture a field of tall grass after a gentle breeze has moved through it. The blades sway softly, adjusting themselves back into stillness. In much the same way, introverts use downtime to let their internal landscape settle. Even a few minutes alone can bring a surprising sense of spaciousness, as though the mind expands after being compressed. Quiet activities, reading, listening to soft music, journaling, or simply sitting in silence allow thoughts to align naturally. This renewal doesn't demand effort. It happens gradually as overstimulation fades. The introvert's emotional clarity often returns during these moments, rising to the surface with gentle steadiness. Researchers studying restorative environments have found that introverts benefit especially from spaces that minimize external noise and visual complexity. Nature offers many such environments: a calm forest path, a quiet lakeside, or a softly lit room with familiar textures. These spaces activate the parasympathetic nervous system, encouraging relaxation and lowering physiological markers of stress. When introverts immerse themselves in these settings, their mind regains energy in a way that feels instinctively right. Their thoughts slow, their emotions stabilize, and their ability to focus strengthens. This restorative experience is not simply preference. It is a biological response to environments that align with their neurological patterns. Through these periods of rest and gentle recovery, introverts rebuild the internal resources needed to navigate daily life with clarity and calm. They emerge from downtime not withdrawn but renewed, ready to engage with greater intention and presence. Their rhythm is slower, but it is steady, and it honors the complex inner processes that shape their way of being. As we drift further into these sleepy facts, the role of rest becomes another quiet reminder of the beauty in introverted design. The understanding that stillness is not emptiness, but a source of strength, balance, and quiet restoration. For many introverts, personal space is not merely a preference, but a vital part of maintaining emotional and mental balance. Their inner world is always active, processing details and impressions at a subtle depth, and the presence of others, no matter how kind or familiar, adds layers of stimulation that need time and space to settle. Boundaries become a way of protecting this internal rhythm, allowing the introvert to regulate their energy gently. These boundaries are rarely rigid or dramatic. Instead, they are soft lines that preserve the quiet necessary for their mind to function comfortably. When honored, they create a sense of safety and openness. When overstretched, they lead to fatigue, distraction, and a feeling of being pulled away from oneself. Scientific research on interpersonal space shows that individuals differ in how closely they can comfortably interact with others. Introverts often prefer a larger comfort radius, a zone where they can observe, process, and respond without feeling overwhelmed. This need is linked to heightened sensitivity in brain regions associated with monitoring social cues and environmental changes. When others move too quickly into that space, introverts may feel their cognitive load increase, as their attention must now track the proximity, expressions, and expectations of the person nearby. Boundaries allow them to manage this processing, reducing the cognitive strain that accompanies close or prolonged interaction. They are not walls. They are gentle buffers that help maintain equilibrium. To imagine the role of personal space in an introvert's life, picture a quiet garden surrounded by a simple wooden fence. The gate is always open, but the boundary creates a sense of calm, signaling that what grows inside is tended with care. Introverts treat their inner world in a similar way. They welcome others in with warmth and sincerity, but they need to do so at a pace that protects their sense of groundedness. When someone respects this rhythm, it builds trust. Conversation becomes easier, emotional openness feels safer, and the introvert can remain present without feeling overwhelmed. When boundaries are ignored, however, even well-meaning interactions can become exhausting, as the introvert's attention disperses faster than it can comfortably adjust. Psychologists studying personal autonomy note that boundaries are especially important for those who rely on internal processing. Introverts need time alone not only to rest, but to reorganize the impressions gathered from the world. Setting boundaries, such as requesting quiet time, limiting social commitments, or stepping back from sensory-heavy environments, helps them return to a balanced state. When introverts advocate for their own needs, they are not avoiding connection. They are sustaining it. Boundaries ensure that interactions remain meaningful rather than draining, allowing introverts to show up fully when they choose to engage. This self-awareness strengthens relationships as it encourages communication based on respect and emotional honesty. In honoring their own boundaries, introverts embrace a form of self-care that protects their clarity, energy, and emotional well-being. These boundaries do not separate them from the world. They keep their inner landscape intact so that they can engage with intention rather than overwhelm. As we drift deeper into these sleepy facts, this understanding adds another layer to the introverted experience. A gentle recognition that space is not a luxury, but a foundation, allowing the introvert's quiet strengths to unfold at their own steady pace. Introverts often move through the world with a quiet kind of awareness, noticing details that drift past others unnoticed. Their attention settles gently on expressions, tones, small shifts in atmosphere, and the subtle cues that reveal how people feel beneath the surface. This observational strength is not something they force. It emerges naturally from the calm pace at which their attention flows. While others may focus outwardly on movement or conversation, introverts listen for what isn't said, watching the softer patterns that weave through daily life. Their awareness creates a sense of depth, allowing them to understand situations with nuance and to respond with a calm, grounded clarity. Scientific research on attention suggests that introverts often engage brain networks responsible for monitoring internal and external stimuli simultaneously. This dual awareness allows them to track their own responses while observing the environment with precision. Because introverts process details deeply, their minds tend to store and interpret information in subtle, layered ways. They may remember small gestures, inconsistencies, or emotional cues long after an interaction ends. This ability is linked to heightened activity in regions associated with reflective thought and empathy, creating a natural sensitivity to context. Such awareness often makes introverts reliable judges of character and calm observers in environments where others may feel distracted or overwhelmed. To imagine this observational style, picture a quiet lake reflecting everything around it. The surface may seem still, but it captures each movement of wind, light, or passing life with gentle accuracy. Introverts experience the world in much the same way, absorbing impressions without rushing to interpret them. Their attention lingers, allowing them to see connections and patterns that emerge only when one slows down enough to notice. This reflective watchfulness often helps them anticipate changes before they occur, offering a sense of intuitive understanding that feels almost instinctive. It is not supernatural or mysterious. It is simply the result of deep, consistent attention to the subtle rhythms of their surroundings. Researchers studying social perception note that introverts often excel at tasks requiring the interpretation of nonverbal cues. Their sensitivity helps them recognize emotional shifts, even when those shifts are faint or unspoken. This makes them comforting companions, as they can adjust their responses to match the emotional tone of the moment. In professional settings, Introverts may identify emerging problems early, noticing signs of tension or miscommunication that others miss. Their awareness does not rely on loudness or speed. It relies on presence. Because they are not focused on competing for attention, their perception opens to a wider range of cues, giving them a calm and steady understanding of what is happening around them. Through this quiet observational strength, introverts reveal a kind of wisdom shaped by patience and depth. They see not only what is obvious, but also what is emerging, what is shifting, and what is felt rather than spoken. This awareness allows them to navigate the world with a sense of gentleness, responding thoughtfully instead of reacting quickly. As we drift further into these sleepy facts, this sensitive attention becomes another reminder of the beauty in introverted design, an ability to witness the world softly, fully, and with a clarity that grows in the calm spaces where the noise fades and understanding begins to rise. Introverts often navigate life guided by a quiet inner compass, one shaped by personal values, long-term meaning, and the steady pull of internal motivation. While the world frequently rewards outward displays of ambition or energy, introverts tend to draw direction from within, aligning their actions with what feels authentic rather than what appears impressive. Their sense of purpose emerges slowly, like a soft light rising behind clouds, and once formed, it remains remarkably steady. This inward orientation allows introverts to choose goals that resonate deeply, even if those goals unfold at a pace that feels gentle compared to the speed of others. They move with intention, guided by a clarity that grows in the stillness of their inner world. Scientific research suggests that introverts rely more heavily on intrinsic motivation, the drive that comes from personal meaning, curiosity, and internal satisfaction. Unlike extrinsic motivation, which depends on external rewards or recognition, intrinsic motivation draws energy from the alignment between action and personal values. Because introverts process experiences deeply, they tend to reflect on why something matters before committing to it. This reflective step strengthens their resilience, as their goals are grounded in a sense of purpose rather than external pressure. Psychologists note that individuals with strong intrinsic motivation are more persistent, more creative, and more emotionally stable in the face of challenges, qualities that introverts often embody naturally. To imagine the introvert's motivation, picture a lantern glowing steadily in a quiet room. The flame does not flicker wildly or brighten dramatically in response to the world outside. Instead, it maintains a calm, unwavering glow. Introverts carry this same steady light within them. Their drive does not surge with excitement or collapse under pressure. It holds. This steadiness allows them to pursue long-term goals with remarkable patience, even when progress feels slow or the path is unclear. Because their motivation comes from within, they are less swayed by trends or the expectations of others. Instead, they return to their values, quietly, consistently, and with a sense of inner alignment that strengthens their resolve. Researchers studying personality and decision-making note that introverts often choose activities that reflect their personal interests, rather than those that provide immediate social reward. They may immerse themselves in learning, creative work, or meaningful routines for long stretches, fueled by curiosity rather than recognition. This internal focus is supported by differences in how their brains respond to dopamine and acetylcholine, the neurotransmitters associated with external reward and calm focus. Introverts engage more readily with the pathways that favor slow, reflective engagement, making it easier for them to stay committed to tasks that require patience and depth. Their values act as anchors, keeping them grounded even when the external world grows chaotic. Through this quiet but powerful inner motivation, introverts reveal a different way of pursuing goals, a way that honors depth, meaning, and internal consistency. Their ambitions are not always loud, but they are genuine, shaped by the parts of life that resonate beneath the surface. When an introvert commits to something, it is because it aligns with who they are, not because it satisfies external expectations. As we drift deeper into these sleepy facts, this understanding of introverted motivation becomes another gentle reminder of their quiet brilliance. Goals chosen with care, pursued with patience, and guided by values that shine softly from within. Introverts often find their stride in environments where work can unfold at a calm, steady rhythm. Tasks that allow for concentration, depth, and a clear sense of structure tend to feel naturally aligned with their inner world. Instead of being energized by fast-paced collaboration or constant external input, introverts thrive when they can immerse themselves in a project without pressure or distraction. Their attention deepens slowly, guided by curiosity and a quiet determination to understand the subject fully. When the environment supports this pace, work becomes something peaceful, a gentle progression of thoughts settling into place one after another. Scientific research suggests that introverts excel in situations requiring sustained attention and reflective learning. Studies have shown that contrasting patterns of brain activation influence how different personality types approach cognitive tasks. Introverts tend to rely on neural pathways associated with depth of processing and long-term memory formation, making them naturally suited for roles requiring analysis, planning, and conceptual thinking. They absorb information more deeply when given time to reflect, allowing them to connect new ideas with their existing knowledge in meaningful ways. This slower, more deliberate learning style leads to strong comprehension and retention, especially in environments that offer quiet and predictability. To visualize how introverts work best, imagine a room where the only sounds are soft, steady, and familiar. A warm desk light illuminates a small space, while the rest of the room remains calm and dim. In this sort of environment, distractions fade away, and the mind gently slips into focus. Thoughts settle, connections form, and the mind begins to move in smooth, continuous lines. Many introverts describe this feeling as slipping beneath the surface of a still lake. Everything grows quieter, clearer, and more fluid. This quiet immersion is not something they force. It occurs naturally when the pace of the task matches the rhythm of their internal processing. Researchers studying flow states, periods of deep, focused immersion, often find that introverts enter these states more easily in solitary or low-stimulation environments. Flow emerges when challenge and skill align, creating a sense of effortless concentration. During this state, brain activity shifts into patterns associated with high focus and reduced self-consciousness. For introverts, this experience can be deeply restorative as well as productive. Tasks such as writing, coding, research, drawing, reading, or careful problem solving often become portals into this smooth, uninterrupted focus. The outside world fades, and time begins to blur, replaced by a gentle, steady movement of thought that feels both calming and energizing. Work and learning environments that recognize these tendencies can bring out some of the introvert's greatest strengths. They perform best when they feel understood, when they are given autonomy, quiet spaces, and the freedom to work at a thoughtful pace. While they may not seek constant collaboration, introverts contribute depth, insight, and precision to group efforts, especially when allowed to process information internally before sharing. Their learning style may differ from louder or faster approaches, but it brings a stability and clarity that enhances the quality of their work. Their strengths shine not through speed, but through sustained, quietly focused engagement. Through these patterns of work, learning, and gentle immersion, introverts reveal another of their quiet gifts: the ability to build understanding slowly and deeply, letting insight emerge from calm concentration. In environments that honor this pace, they flourish. Their work becomes not just a task, but a peaceful unfolding, shaped by patience, intention, and a mind that finds its balance in stillness. As we drift further into these sleepy reflections, the introvert's relationship with focus becomes another reminder of their subtle brilliance, one that grows not from noise, but from quiet mastery. Stress touches everyone, but for introverts, the internal experience often carries a different texture, quieter, deeper, and more influenced by the subtleties of their environments. Because introverts process information so thoroughly, even small disruptions can ripple through their inner world with greater intensity. What seems like a minor source of stress to others may linger longer in the introvert's thoughts, weaving itself into their emotional landscape until they have time to unwind and reflect. This doesn't make introverts fragile. It simply means their nervous systems gather more detail, giving each experience a weight that requires gentle processing. Stress for introverts often appears not as outward agitation, but as an inward tightening, a sense that their internal clarity has grown crowded. Scientific studies on personality and stress reveal that introverts show heightened sensitivity in the brain regions responsible for threat detection and environmental monitoring. This means they may notice subtle tensions, tone shifts, small conflicts, or unexpected changes sooner than others. While this awareness can be a strength, it also increases cognitive load during stressful situations. Introverts often need more time to recover because their reflective pathways continue processing the event long after it occurs. Stress hormones such as cortisol may remain elevated longer in introverts, especially after social overstimulation. Quiet environments help counterbalance this response, allowing the mind to release stored tension gradually and naturally. To imagine how stress moves through an introvert's inner world, picture a still pond struck by a single pebble. The ripples expand slowly, touching every part of the water before fading. The introvert's processing works in much the same way. A stressful moment sends gentle waves through their thoughts, requiring time and space for the ripples to settle. During this settling period, introverts often withdraw, not to escape, but to regain equilibrium. Journaling, quiet walks, soft music, or simply sitting alone allow their nervous system to ease back into balance. These practices activate calming neural pathways and reduce overstimulation, helping the inner landscape return to its natural state of clarity. Researchers studying coping mechanisms have found that introverts tend to use strategies rooted in reflection rather than immediate action. They prefer to understand the source of stress before responding to it, asking themselves quiet questions about meaning, cause, and emotional impact. This reflective approach often results in more sustainable solutions, even if it takes longer to arrive at them. However, because their minds remain active during this process, overstimulating environments can interfere with their ability to decompress. Spaces that reduce sensory input, dim lighting, soft sounds, slow pacing, support their recovery by aligning with the way their nervous system resets. These environments don't erase stress, they help untangle it with patience. Through this gentle yet thorough style of processing, introverts reveal a unique kind of resilience. Their stress responses may be quieter, but they are thoughtful, intentional, and rooted in a desire to regain balance rather than react automatically. When given the space to reflect, introverts often emerge from stressful experiences with deeper insight, emotional understanding, and a renewed sense of calm. As we continue drifting through these sleepy facts, this quiet resilience becomes another reminder of the strength hidden within introversion, a strength shaped not by force, but by reflection, patience, and the soft restoration of the inner world. The experience of social energy in introverts begins long before they step into a conversation or enter a room. It is rooted in quiet biological patterns that shape how their nervous system responds to stimulation. For introverts, social interaction is not simply a matter of preference. It is something the body and brain process with a unique rhythm. Their systems absorb more detail, analyze more layers, and take in more subtle cues during even brief interactions. Because of this, social settings draw heavily from their internal energy reserves. This biological grounding explains why introverts can enjoy company yet feel drained afterward, needing space to return to equilibrium. Their social energy works like a tide. It draws inward, gathers strength, and flows outward again only when the inner reservoir feels full. Scientists studying personality have found that introverts show different patterns of neural activation in areas related to arousal, reward, and sensory processing. While extroverts may feel invigorated by high levels of external stimulation, introverts reach optimal arousal at much lower levels. Too much noise, conversation, or movement can push their systems beyond comfort, leading to overstimulation. This is linked to differences in the reticular activating system, a network in the brainstem that regulates alertness. Introverts often have more sensitive arousal pathways, meaning their brains become full more quickly. Rather than seeking intense stimulation to feel engaged, they find harmony in lower intensity environments where their mind can remain steady and clear. To imagine this biological rhythm, picture a gentle lantern glowing in a quiet space. Its light doesn't flare when surrounded by other lanterns. Instead, it burns at its natural brightness. When too many bright lights gather around it, the glow becomes harder to notice, and the lantern needs distance to shine comfortably again. Introverts experience social energy in a similar way. They are capable of warmth, connection, and deep engagement. But these interactions require energy. Their systems must rebuild afterward. Solitude serves as the dimly lit room where the lantern steadies itself, regaining its natural glow before rejoining the world. This ebb and flow is not emotional fragility. It is a biological pattern shaped by the way their nervous system restores balance. Researchers also highlight differences in neurotransmitter pathways. Extroverts respond more strongly to the dopamine-driven reward system, which reinforces excitement, novelty, and rapid social engagement. Introverts, however, respond more closely to the acetylcholine pathway, associated with calm focus, deep thought, and quiet pleasure. Activities that engage this system include reading, meaningful conversations, introspection, and solitary work. When introverts follow this calm pathway, they feel energized from within, experiencing a sense of mental clarity and emotional steadiness. Overly stimulating environments force the dopamine system into action, which can feel jarring for an introvert and lead to quicker depletion. Understanding this difference reveals why certain settings soothe them while others exhaust them. Through these biological patterns, the introvert's relationship with social energy becomes clearer. Their need for space is not avoidance, it is maintenance. Their preference for calm environments is not disinterest. It is alignment with their nervous system's natural rhythm. And their quiet recharging is not isolation, it is restoration. When introverts listen to these signals, they move through life with greater balance, offering their best to others without losing themselves in the process. For introverts, relationships are often built like slow-growing gardens, tended with patience, watered with sincerity, and nurtured in spaces where conversation can unfold without pressure. Trust emerges gradually, shaped by consistency and emotional safety, rather than intensity. Because introverts process experiences deeply, they prefer connections that feel stable and genuine, relationships where both people can move at a comfortable pace. Their bonds often begin quietly, without fanfare, but once established, they become steady and enduring. This deliberate approach is not hesitation, it is care. Introverts open their hearts carefully so that, once open, the connection feels honest, lasting, and deeply rooted. Scientific studies on attachment and personality show that introverts often seek emotional intimacy through depth rather than breadth. They value meaningful conversations over surface-level exchanges, choosing relationships where vulnerability feels safe and mutual. Their brains activate strongly in networks associated with reflective emotional processing, which means they may revisit important conversations long after they occur, analyzing tone, meaning, and emotional undercurrents. This internal review strengthens the bond, allowing introverts to build a map of trust over time. Because they notice subtle cues, shifts in voice, micro-expressions, or slight changes in behavior, they navigate relationships with attentiveness and empathy, creating a sense of closeness that feels calm and authentic. To visualize how intimacy grows for an introvert, imagine two people talking beside a softly glowing lantern in a quiet room. The conversation isn't rushed. Silence is allowed to settle comfortably between thoughts. In this stillness, connection deepens. Introverts thrive in these moments because they can bring their full attention to the exchange. Their mind isn't divided between stimuli. It is present, receptive, and open. This presence helps others feel seen in a way that is rare and soothing. For many introverts, intimacy is not about intensity or dramatic declarations, but about the safety found in quiet understanding, the sense that another person respects the inner world they carry so carefully. Researchers studying interpersonal dynamics note that introverts often excel at emotional attunement within close relationships. Their reflective nature helps them recognize their own feelings with clarity, which in turn supports healthier communication. When disagreements arise, introverts tend to seek calm environments before addressing the issue, allowing their mind to settle enough to respond thoughtfully. This approach reduces emotional escalation and fosters trust. They prefer honesty delivered gently, boundaries expressed respectfully, and reassurance shared steadily. Their loyalty is strong not because they cling tightly, but because they choose connections intentionally. Once committed, they support others with a quiet, consistent warmth that does not waver easily. Through this layered approach to relationships, introverts reveal a form of intimacy rooted in depth, patience, and emotional steadiness. They may not rush to open up, but when they do, they offer genuine presence rather than performance. Their trust is slow but sincere, their affection subtle but enduring. As we drift deeper into these sleepy reflections, this understanding shows another side of introversion, the ability to build relationships that feel peaceful, grounding, and rich in meaning. In the quiet spaces where words are soft and emotions are honored gently, introverts cultivate some of the most resilient and heartfelt bonds of all. Introverts carry strengths that do not always announce themselves loudly, yet they shape the world in steady and meaningful ways. Their abilities emerge from depth rather than display, from patience rather than speed, and from the quiet clarity of their inner world. In many situations, introverts excel not by competing for attention, but by moving intentionally, observing carefully, and approaching challenges with thoughtful precision. These strengths often unfold slowly, revealing themselves only when others take the time to notice. But when they do appear, they bring stability, insight, and emotional grounding to the spaces introverts inhabit. Scientific research highlights that introverts tend to excel in areas requiring sustained concentration, analytical thinking, and creative problem-solving. Their nervous system's sensitivity to stimulation allows them to pick up on subtleties, patterns in data, shifts in emotion, or details others overlook. Because introverts process information deeply, their insights often reach beyond the obvious, uncovering layers of meaning that contribute to stronger decisions. Studies also suggest that introverts show heightened activity in brain regions associated with reflective awareness, enabling them to integrate complex information with calm deliberation. These traits support strengths in fields that reward depth: writing, research, counseling, design, strategy, and any craft that benefits from patience and precision. To imagine the strengths of introverts, picture a steady lighthouse on a calm shoreline. It doesn't move, and it doesn't shout for attention, yet its presence guides others through fog and darkness with unwavering reliability. Introverts often occupy this symbolic space in their relationships, workplaces, and communities. Their grounded presence creates a sense of stability, especially during moments of uncertainty. They listen carefully, respond thoughtfully, and offer support with quiet sincerity. Their ability to remain composed in chaotic environments allows them to provide clarity when others feel overwhelmed. They may not speak first, but when they do, their words often bring perspective. Researchers studying leadership have found that introverted leaders can be especially effective in environments where teams are proactive or highly skilled. Because introverts listen more than they speak, They create space for others to voice ideas, fostering creativity and collaboration. Their thoughtful approach to problem solving helps them navigate conflict with calm reasoning, and their tendency to consider long-term implications leads to steady, reliable guidance. This style of leadership may not attract immediate attention, but it creates a culture of trust and respect. When introverts lead, teams feel heard, valued, and supported, which improves morale, creativity, and performance over time. Beyond professional strengths, introverts contribute subtle emotional gifts to the people around them. Their empathy is grounded in reflection, allowing them to understand feelings with nuance. Their loyalty emerges from intentional connection, giving their relationships a sense of trust and depth. Their creativity flows from rich inner landscapes, producing ideas shaped by imagination and meaning. Their patience allows them to stay present through complex conversations, offering support without judgment. As we drift deeper into these sleepy reflections, these strengths reveal a truth that often goes unspoken. The quiet ways introverts move through the world are not weaknesses to overcome, but qualities that enrich their surroundings, illuminating life with a gentleness that grows stronger in stillness. Quiet personalities carry a kind of beauty that can be easy to miss in a world filled with noise and movement. Their strengths do not demand attention. Instead, they unfold gently in the background, enriching the lives of others through subtle presence and steady depth. Introverts bring softness to spaces that might otherwise feel rushed, offering a calm counterbalance to environments filled with urgency. Their silence is often misunderstood as detachment, yet within that silence rests a rich tapestry of thought, emotion, and awareness. The beauty of their personality lies not in volume but in intention, each gesture, word, and action shaped with care. Scientific research on temperament shows that introverts often exhibit higher levels of behavioral inhibition, a trait associated with caution, reflection, and sensitivity to subtle cues. While this may slow their responses in unfamiliar settings, it also enables them to navigate life with thoughtfulness and emotional intelligence. This deliberate pacing creates space for understanding, making introverts skilled at reading complex situations. Their sensitivity to nuance helps them interpret tone, body language, and unspoken feelings that others may overlook. Rather than reacting impulsively, they allow their mind to process meaning before they respond, which leads to stronger, more grounded decisions. To picture the beauty of a quiet personality, imagine a gentle snowfall settling over a landscape at dusk. Each flake moves without sound, yet the entire scene transforms with a soft glow. Introverts carry this same transformative quality. They may speak softly, move slowly, or prefer smaller gatherings, but their presence changes the emotional texture of a room. Their calm can ease tension, their reflection can provide insight, and their empathy can bring warmth to even the coldest moments. Quiet personalities don't seek to dominate, they seek to understand. In doing so, they create environments where others feel safe to be themselves, unhurried and unjudged. Researchers studying social interaction often find that quieter individuals strengthen group cohesion by listening before contributing. Their ability to absorb information creates a sense of balance, helping teams and relationships navigate complex dynamics with greater harmony. In personal life, introverts offer steady companionship, showing loyalty not through grand gestures, but through consistent, gentle care. They remember the small details, honor boundaries, and provide support in ways that feel calm and grounding. Their beauty lies in the subtlety of these actions, the word chosen carefully, the silence offered compassionately, the presence felt even without sound. Through all these qualities, quiet personalities remind us that not all strength is loud and not all brilliance is immediate. Some forms of beauty reveal themselves slowly, like light emerging at dawn. Introverts embody this quiet brilliance, moving through the world with a softness that encourages reflection and calm. As we drift further into these sleepy reflections, the beauty of introversion becomes clearer, not as something hidden or lesser, but as a powerful, gentle force that enriches every space it enters. In the stillness of their inner world, introverts carry a glow that invites others to slow down, breathe, and find comfort in the quiet. As psychology continues to evolve, our understanding of introversion is becoming clearer, softer, and more grounded in empathy. What was once seen as shyness or withdrawal is now recognized as a distinct pattern of cognition, biology, and emotional processing. Introverts move through the world with a depth shaped by inner clarity, and researchers are beginning to appreciate the richness behind their quiet tendencies. Advances in neuroscience, personality research, and social psychology continue to reveal how introverted traits support creativity, emotional intelligence, and thoughtful decision-making. The future of understanding introversion lies not in changing these traits, but in valuing them, seeing the quiet mind not as an exception, but as one of the many natural rhythms of being human. Scientific studies increasingly highlight that introversion is woven into the brain's architecture, influenced by patterns of arousal, neurotransmitter sensitivity, and instinctive responses to stimulation. As imaging technologies become more advanced, researchers can observe how introverted minds activate differently during reflection, social interaction, and rest. Emerging findings suggest that introverts may engage more deeply with default mode networks, regions involved in introspection and memory integration, allowing them to create meaning from experiences with a level of depth that is difficult to quantify. These insights continue to replace outdated assumptions, demonstrating that introversion is not a deficit to overcome, but a cognitive style with its own strengths and biological foundations. To imagine the growing appreciation for introversion, picture a landscape slowly brightening as dawn begins to rise. At first, the light is faint, barely visible on the horizon, but gradually it spreads across the sky, bringing clarity to everything it touches. Society's understanding is moving through a similar shift. There is a widening recognition that quiet individuals contribute in ways that are easy to overlook when volume is mistaken for value. In classrooms, workplaces, and relationships, people are beginning to see the importance of pacing, solitude, and thoughtful communication. This cultural shift honors the introvert's natural rhythm, making space for their steady presence and reflective insights to be understood rather than misinterpreted. Researchers studying workplace dynamics and education are advocating for environments that support diverse cognitive styles. Flexible workspaces, calmer classrooms, and hybrid social structures recognize that not everyone thrives under constant stimulation. These changes help introverts access their strengths more comfortably, contributing creativity and clarity without the strain of adapting to systems built exclusively around extroverted norms. As scientific understanding grows, there is an increasing push toward inclusivity, not just in behavior, but in energy patterns, processing styles, and the spaces where people feel most at ease. The future may hold a world where introversion is not only accepted, but celebrated as an essential part of human diversity. Through this expanding understanding, introverts stand at the center of a quiet transformation, one that reveals the value of depth, stillness, and internal awareness. Instead of being asked to match the world's fast pace, they may find the world gradually adjusting, acknowledging that reflection has its own kind of brilliance. As we drift toward the close of these sleepy reflections, the future of introversion becomes a comforting thought, a recognition that quiet rhythms, gentle minds, and deeply felt experiences are just as vital as the louder voices around them. In honoring this truth, we create space for introverts to move with ease, knowing their quiet way of being carries its own profound strength, now and in all the years ahead. As we come to the end of this quiet journey through the inner world of introverts, the pace can slow even more, settling into something soft and unhurried. These sleepy reflections have traced the thoughtful rhythms, gentle strengths, and quiet brilliance that shape introverted lives. From the way they process emotion to the calm they find in solitude, each piece offers a reminder that there is beauty in moving through the world at a softer pace. Nothing here demands your attention now. You can simply let the ideas drift, the details fade, and the quiet settle around you like a comforting weight. If you recognize pieces of yourself in these moments, your calm, your depth, your quiet ways of understanding, know that these traits hold their own kind of strength. The world may move loudly, but your inner rhythm has its own wisdom, steady and true. There is space for your gentleness, your reflection, your slow unfolding. You don't need to change anything in this moment. You are allowed to just rest, breathing in a way that feels natural, letting the day fall away without resistance. The quiet you carry is not small. It is expansive, stretching inward in ways only you can feel. Thank you for spending this time here tonight, listening, resting, and moving gently through these sleepy facts. Whether you are drifting towards sleep or simply settling your thoughts, may this sense of calm stay with you. The soft patterns of introversion, the depth of your inner life, and the quiet strength of your mind can all continue to slow the world around you, one peaceful breath at a time. Good night, friend. Sleep well.